So welcome to the 28th episode of the Boar Hat Tavern Podcast, podcast all about seven deadly sins, Grand Cross. So I'm your host, Daz, and I'm joined today not by Sandyy and not by Novage, but by Claptrap. Claptrap, welcome, man. First time on the podcast. Maybe we'll make this a regular thing.
Good to be here for once, instead of just watching.
Yeah, one of our avid viewers, Claptrap is, so it's great to have him here. He's got a lot of insight. He's part of our guild, Sandyy and Novage's guild, and he's one of the brainchilds of what we do during Guild Wars, so he's got a lot of knowledge up there in that Claptrap of his. If you're wondering what happened to Sandyy and Novage, they've just been extraordinarily busy, and it's one of the reasons we haven't done a show in, I don't even know how long, I don't even want to count the days, but we are still planning on doing it. And hopefully Sandyy and Novage will be able to pop in from week to week. We're going to be making this a weekly podcast again before we're trying to work around Sandyy and Novage's schedules. Now we're just going to do them, and hopefully they can show up whenever they can. But we do have a great show today. We're going to talk about a few things. I mean, we've got so much we haven't talked about because we haven't done this in so long, but what we're going to talk about is more of the recent topics. The KoF Collab is coming out next week. We are 99% sure that's coming just because we know that it's the one thing that we haven't had that JP has already had. We're going to talk about the bird demon. I'm not even sure what its official name is, Hrustflogler, but we're going to be talking about the bird demon because Clap has done it a million times, not only for his account, but for other people's accounts. So he's got a really good sense of how to get through the three different stages with different setups and like what's required. We're also going to talk about top 100 PvP because there's been a bit of a controversy there this week, but also both myself and Claptrap were working on top 100 PvP and pushing that last week as well. But Clap, so I mean, I introed you a little bit. You've been in the guild, I don't even know for how long now, like what, maybe
6 months, I think.
I was gonna say 4 or 5 months, but I guess the time's flown by. So like, how did you end up like finding us? I don't even remember the context. I remember the chat we had together when we found you and brought you into the guild, but I don't know. Were you just looking to get competitive and you decided to apply for denied? I can't even recall, or did I find you?
Yeah, I wanted to get competitive and I was watching the podcast, so I figured why not try it in the night.
Oh, hey, so the podcast actually works for recruiting, eh? Yeah, I remember.
It sure did.
I remember we went over your box, like the whole recruiting process. We look at everyone's box, we chat with them, see if they're a good fit personality wise, but also account wise. I remember being like, I don't know, your CC's a little low, you know. And then you showed me a screenshot of your thousands and thousands of anvils and your wall of purple stones and everything. I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, you could probably add like 1 million CC just by using those materials. And since then, you become one of the stronger members in our guild. So you've been a great addition. Yeah. And not to mention that when we do Guild Wars, I think you're up like for 48 hours straight, always. You're always online. No one knows what time zone you're in because, well, hey, like we can't figure out what your sleep cycle is at all. There's a rumor going around that you might be a vampire as well.
Maybe.
Maybe. Not confirming nor denying it. But anyways, let's start getting into the show because we do have a few things to cover. The first thing we're going to talk about is the KoF Collab. I know a lot of people are excited for this to come back around. Like the KoF originally came out, I can't remember how long ago. It was probably almost a year ago now. And a lot of people either didn't really take it seriously or maybe they weren't as competitive back then as they are now. I know that's probably the case for both me and Claptrap too. They probably didn't realize how effective Keo can be in a lot of situations now that he's back. Rugel's back, Athena's back, Maya's back, but who cares about her because no one ever uses her. But
I care about her.
so okay, apparently some people do. But is there like anyone in particular that you're interested in seeing come back, Clap? Because I know you must be interested in something about it coming back, eh?
The new characters mostly, because I have the others already 6-6.
Well, then you don't have to worry. I'm excited because I know
But I'm most excited for Athena for other people in our guild.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. Like Athena and Keo, at the time when KoF originally came out, there was no Guild Wars. For geared and ungeared Guild Wars, Athena and Keo are like mainstays. And for anyone looking to get competitive, I'd say that they're two of the big units that you want to make sure you try and get at least a copy of during the return of this banner. But like Clap said, there are 2 new characters as well. There's Terry Bogard and Yagami Iori. Terry is a red character, and Yagami Iori, God, I don't even know how, Yagami, I guess I'll call him Yagami. It's a little bit easier than his last name. He's a green unit. And they've got interesting kits. Let's go over them a little bit, and we'll just chat about them, because I'm not sure what your opinions are on them, Clap. I'm kind of mixed, especially after watching a lot of footage on them. Anyways, we'll start with Terry. Terry, he's got a single target ult depletion card. Very similar to your green Merlins of the world, except for on silver it does 2 ult orb drain, which is amazing. It's a little bit of a bump up from those characters. And he's also got this unique stance card that counters but doesn't provide a taunt. So if there's damage on any of your teammates, you will actually you'll counter damage to the character that attacked your team. He also reduces the stats of the enemy with the highest remaining HP on your turn by 20%, which is crazy. I think it's an all stats reduction too. And he also has an AoE power strike ult, which is extraordinarily hard hitting. We all know how, Sariel and Merlin's power strike cards hit. Well, on an ultimate AoE, you're pretty much going to be wiping everybody. And for the KoF collab too, we also have the advantage of getting relics for all these new characters, as well as the old KoF characters. So it makes sense to talk about them, because unlike all the other relics, they're not time gated. We'll be able to easily get them throughout just the event. So Terry's relic, for each ignite on the enemy, he decreases the enemy's penetration, crit chance, and crit damage. Wait a minute, I'm mixing these up, aren't I? When the hero uses a stance skill, removes all debuffs on the hero and increases all the stats of the hero by 20% for 2 turns. That's what I get for trying to put new notes together last minute. I was mixing up his and Yagami's. So that's pretty cool. He removes the debuffs and he also stacks his own stats up. So, Clout, what do you think about Terry Bogard? Is he going to be a meta-shaking unit, or is he someone that you're looking for? You already said you like these new units, apparently, right? That's who you're excited for.
New collab units are always exciting to use with Jim Hopper, just to try and make a collab team work.
You think he's going to work with Jim? Jim's been one of those guys that's been sitting in my box kind of dusty for a while. I'd like to take him back out again.
I mean, who knows? Counters are known to just deal a lot of damage. So
that's true. And I guess with that poison card too, you can not only do a lot of damage, but also give that extra little damage for the following turn with the poison. I don't know. I'm actually pretty excited for Terry. I like that stance card that he has. Anytime I've watched any footage of people using him, it almost has that Assault Meliodas feel where you gotta be careful about attacking, right? Because you don't want to take too much damage. And Terry can do a surprising amount of damage, especially if you've got his relic on him. If you stack his relic stacks, right? So if every time you use a stance skill, you get 20% all stats up for 2 turns. So you can get, theoretically, I think up to 5 of those stacking, right? But even if you just get a 2 or 3 stacking, 40, 60%, that's a lot, and then he'll end up doing a lot of damage in return with that stance too. So it definitely has that Assault Meliodas feel to him, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't know. Do you think he's gonna find a place in the? Is this just one of those novelty characters though? That's the one thing I always wonder when you see these new characters. They look kind of cool, but are they really gonna be around for long?
I don't think so. Just like most collab characters, they're just not on the level of festival units, I think.
Yeah, and there's so many characters they got to compete with. You know what Terry and Yagami kind of remind me of? It reminds me of the Stranger Things collab. You could, I guess, have used 11, but no one really did outside of YouTubers. I don't think I ever came across more than one outside of the first week, right? And Hopper, yeah, he's fun, but again, he's there just for the memes more than anything, and maybe you can get use out of him in Guild Wars, but outside of that, I don't know.
You can make use of for everyone in Guild Wars.
That's true. There's so many units, you can find a place for them. I do think Terry might have a place there. The one place that I particularly would like to see him maybe be used is on a bond team in Guild Wars, probably on defense. I feel like in a 4v4 format, he might work really well on defense. But I mean, it's always hard to say. If you've got a lot of stance cards on a team, you never know how that Guild Wars AI is going to work on defense. but it still has some interesting potential there. How about Yagami though? Let's go over his kit and then we'll talk about him too. He's Kyo's best bud, I think, because he's got a single target co-destruction card just like Kyo. He's got a Merlin's AoE infect card, but his stats aren't nearly as high as Merlin's, so you don't expect it to do nearly as much damage. His passive gives him extra damage on ignites. He gets like an extra boost beyond what the ignites usually do, and he gets a stackable attack related stats buff after each use, kind of similar to I'm gonna mix them up now, Rem, but I think Rem's starts before she attacks, whereas this one's after his skill use. I could be wrong in that, but either way, this one's after the skill use, so it's a little bit less powerful, and it's 20%. Oh, sorry, no, it's, well, I don't know what the modifier is. I didn't write it down. But either way, he gets stronger with each skill use. Very similar to how Rem does it. And then he's got a single target ult, which is really strange. It depletes ult gauge. I don't know. Usually if you've got a single target ult, you just kind of want it to kill, not to deplete ult. But hey, it is what it is, I guess.
Just like Fountain's ult.
I know. Yeah, and we all know how much everyone loves that, but still, like, it just seems like a very strange kind of ult. But he's more of a, I guess, a card damagey character than anything else. That co-destruction card can hit hard if there's a lot of ignites on the other team. He also has his Holy Relic, which is for each ignite on the enemy, decreases the enemy's penetration, which is pierce, crit chance, and crit damage by 2%. So that can get significantly high. Of course, you know, you read his kit, it just screams you got to play him with Kyo.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's just the way he's going to work, right? I mean, you could probably maybe get away with other characters that put a lot of debuffs on the other team, like maybe like the new Gother or something, but really you're going to want the ignites because he gets the extra bonus damage from that. I don't know. How do you feel about these ignite teams in general? Like I've always found the problem with them is as soon as Kyo dies, they fall apart. What do you think?
Exactly that. Like, without Kyo, there's no ignites, and then they just lose a large portion of their damage.
Yeah, it's way too easy to counter. Like most other teams, like if you kill one unit, like maybe a Bond team is another exception. If you kill Bond, then it kind of falls apart too. But killing Kyo's a lot squishier, and his curse is horrible. He's usually a lot easier to kill. As soon as that Kyo goes down, a team with Yagami and Kyo would pretty much just fall to pieces. It is interesting, and he does do a lot of damage, but again, like this comes back to the thing we were talking about before, like there's festival units, like why don't you just use Merlin or T1 or someone else, right, instead of him? You're probably gonna get just as much damage. You don't have to wait for it to stack up. You don't have to deal with like, oh, there, Margaret cleansed everything, so now I gotta start all over again and wait a few more turns before I can actually get my Gami doing damage again. You watch YouTube, like I was watching a bunch of YouTubers do damage, and it's cool. Like, oh, look at that big hit, you know. But it just the setup required for that just seems not feasible, I guess, to like actually pull off in a practical situation. It's cool again for the memes and to like watch it on YouTube content, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be like a meta shaking unit or someone you'll see much at all.
I don't think so either
In PvP. So I thought you said you were excited about these new units. You sound like lackluster.
I am, but I don't think they're going to be good. But it's still going to be fun to play them.
I guess fair enough.
For a week or so.
I misinterpreted. I assumed you're going to be like, oh, like this guy's OP or this guy's OP. I was waiting for that kind of reaction to it, but
Sorry to disappoint.
I know you did. Honestly, the other thing that sucks about these collab units too is if you want to get the costumes, you got to put up dollars for them too, beyond the free cosmetics that you get for them, and that's a big investment for anyone. If you're a light spender, a whale, or free to play, you know, it's you can't even get them if you're free to play, obviously. So it locks the usefulness of these characters, because in a lot of cases now, if you want to be competitive in PvP or in most situations, you have to make sure you got their cosmetics. I'm just more excited because I can pick up cosmetics that I don't have on some of the older units, the older KoF collab units. Now I can get their CCs up and get their holy relics on them and boost their CCs even higher, like Athena or Kyo, and even Rugal too. Rugal's got some cool stuff with his new holy relic as well, and he still sees some use in Guild Wars. Okay, so I'm guessing that you're going to pull on this Clap? Is that just because you want to try the units out? Is that what your style is here?
Yeah, and for my Sigurd dupes, who's on the banner.
Yeah, there you go, Sigurd. Yeah, I didn't realize he was on the banner too. Is there anyone else juicy on the banner? Is Brunhild on the banner? I can't remember.
No, Thonar, I think.
Oh, Thonar. Yeah, so
and
much.
The Angels and Chandler, the usual
Yay, Thonar. We got it for free, didn't we? So I'm sure like no one's going to be too excited about that. But and the angels are on every
all
banner.
the old coins matter if you can get them.
That's true. That's true. Very useful. Okay, well, let's move on from the KoF Collab because we're going to be talking about this next week. We're going to be talking about the characters in more detail. Like, we just want to kind of get like some first impressions, just so people can know, like, you know, maybe should I be spending those last few gems I have on Gother or saving them for the collab? Again, it's all dependent on your situation. We're not your parents. We're not going to tell you what to do. But I think the KoF Collab for a lot of people is probably a fairly skippable banner, I say, for most people. But again, everyone else has their own situation.
Yeah, you don't need any of them unless you really want to get competitive in Guild Wars.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's talk about the bird. The bird has been, the Hresfrettler has been some of the most difficult PvE content we've ever seen in the game. Not some of the most. It's been the most difficult PvE content. It was like almost impossible. Well, I think it pretty much was impossible right off the bat. But now that we've had a few weeks, we have SA6 thing. We've got constellations coming next week, which will help boost everyone's teams up a little bit to make this a little bit easier. We've got more units that are built for the bird. It's interesting to see that some people are starting to find a bit more of a comfort level. I'm finding that I can clear floor 3 on a weekly basis now, which is amazing because this is like pretty much the only way you can get the key material that you need, those little like medallions for crafting holy relics. Yeah, you can exchange for 1 a week in the Tree of Life shop or whatever, but that's like negligible.
You also need to buy the other materials there, the pizza slices.
Yeah.
So that's like not even a possibility to buy for me.
Exactly. So if you wanted to exchange, I don't even know how many weeks it'd take you, because if you're saving up to get those medallions in the exchange shop, that'd be 15 weeks. You only get 1 a week. There are 1,000 of those coins, which I'm not even sure how many you can get in a given week. But then you gotta get the pizza slices too. Yeah, it's
1,288, I think, or something around there.
Oh my gosh. So either way, it's not feasible. You get 1 medallion for beating floor 1. You get 2 medallions for beating floor 2. You get 3 medallions for beating floor 3. So being able to get to past floor 2 or floor 3 gets you to that magic number 15, which you need to get an SSR grade relic crafted. So even if you're going through floor 3 every week, it's 2.5 weeks to be able to get one. So being able to get that gives you a huge advantage if you can pass floor 3 on the bird. But even like just being able to get through floor 2, which I know is difficult for a lot of people, especially if you're not an endgame player, is something that's very valuable. So we're going to talk about it a little bit here and just kind of go over what we've found and what Clap who's run this probably 100 times, literally 100 times more than I have. So just
I think it's way more than that at this point.
Yeah, I was being generous.
Or at least attempt at doing it.
Yeah, and it's frustrating content. So it's good to get any sort of like little tips and advice you can get along the way to do it. So we'll go floor by floor, and then I think we'll talk about along the way, maybe, because floor 3 is really about what buffs you get from, like, the bird gets buffs every so many phases and on different floor levels of the floors, and some of them are almost like deal breakers, are really difficult to deal with, whereas other ones are more manageable. And if you can get the good ones along the way, you're much more likely to be successful on floor 3. I think the first 2 floors, they're not as important to clear those 2, but if you want to clear floor 3, it does become more important. So we'll talk about floor 1, floor 2. We won't really talk about the buffs probably as much. Maybe they'll come up in passing. But once we get to floor 3, we'll talk about what you kind of want for setup to get to floor 3. Now, just in case anyone doesn't know, when you run through the bird, if you die, there's actually, like, say you die on floor 3, there's actually a trick where you shut the game down when it gets that screen that says, like, you know, you've been defeated and there's an OK button. Don't hit the OK button. Just close the app, go back in, and you can actually do that floor over again. And you don't have to start all the way at the beginning. And that will save you so much heartache, especially if you're having problems with the floor. So you can do it over and over again. You have to go all the way back to floor 1 to start over again. So that's an important thing.
Interesting thing to mention there. They're actually going to change it so that you don't have to force close your game.
Amazing.
But when you fail, they will just let you continue on that floor.
So they're turning the bug into a feature. That's great.
Yes.
That's
they
something.
Posted that on the forums.
Yeah.
Today, I think.
That's more than welcome and definitely is necessary. Okay, so let's go into floor 1. Floor 1 was even pretty tough in the first week, but like I said, we've gotten a few more things to help us out. So, Clap, what do you really need to beat floor 1? What is the thing that you want to make sure you have on your team to get through it?
Anyone with a power strike attack.
So we're talking...
That's all you need.
Most people...
Sariel, Brynhild.
Can you go with Merlin? I don't know if I've ever seen anyone try Merlin, but...
For floor 1, you definitely can.
Yeah. So power strike. Because the big issue...
T1.
The big issue, yeah, there's the other way you can go too. If you get Margaret gold buffs, you can use a hard-hitting character like T1 or rely a bit more on ults to get through the 4th phase, which is the problematic phase on floor 1. Phase 4, the boss's resistance and defense go up like astronomically to the point where most things will patience the boss. The only reason that Power Strike doesn't is because you get extra damage based on his resistance, and since his resistance is so high, you can actually kind of crack through it. So Sariel, Merlin, I guess are there other I guess like Cusack's ult might get through things like that. But also if you have a gold Margaret buff and like a T1 or like a Brunhild's another great one too to use here, you can crack that that patience barrier and get through it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but generally the strategy is whatever team you use, and there's a lot of teams you can use, you just save those power strike cards, try and get them ranked up a little bit when you're going into phase 4. And then if you've got enough of them, you're generally going to pass it. And I guess too, depending if phase 1 is floor 1 is just your goal, then it doesn't really matter if you come out the other end healed up or not, but it is usually good to bring a healer or some sort of healing mechanic, be it Matrona, which is amazing, by the way, if you happen to get her, because the way that she works is the lower HP she has, she gives everyone that nice like boost of healing at the beginning of a turn that increases the recovery, one of the regeneration rate, so everyone gets like almost like a free heal at the beginning of each turn. Green Liz is used quite a bit, as well as Brunhilde. For her, if you ult with her, she gives everybody a heal. So usually you're using either Matrona or Green Liz on your team to make sure you kind of sustain yourself throughout all the damage the bird does. And the bird does a lot of damage. Are there any other tricky stages on floor 1, or is that just pretty much it? You just gotta try and...
it's just having the power strikes for phase 4 for heavy hitting attacks with a gold buff.
Yeah, once we get to the higher floors, there are some stages where there's definitely things you got to consider if you want to try and get through them. But floor 1, hopefully, especially if you're a beginner, might be difficult, but just trying to keep those in mind, bring the power strike characters into it. And as long as you've got them leveled up and worked on well enough, you should be able to get through floor 1 without too much of a problem. Floor 2 starts to get a little trickier. What do you need to have here, Clap? Because especially phase 2 can be impossible if you don't bring the right characters.
You need to have a taunt for phase 2. Otherwise, the bird just wipes your team. Almost guaranteed. Yeah,
the bird has the last attack they do on phase 2 will miss you if you have a taunt up. But if you don't have a taunt up, I don't even know what the attack multiplier is on it.
3,500%.
You're dead, pretty much. I've survived it once because I had a gold Margaret buff without a taunt, but you're pretty much going to die unless you have an active taunt up. So you want to make sure that you've got that Matrona, that Green Diane works, or even Blue Derriere is another good one too. Blue Derriere is a little bit more difficult because on that second phase, you need to make sure you got the taunt up. Her taunt only lasts for 1 turn, whereas Diane and Matrona's last for 3. But it can be done, and sometimes you just need to deal with the RNG and reset until you get it. Phase 3, you got to be a little bit careful too, right? This is the one where you can't bring him down below 75% of his health because he gets these different buffs depending on his HP threshold. I think it's around 75%. If you get him below that, he'll just regen back to full. So the trick for this phase is you can hit, because he's got a damage cap. You can only do, I think, around 30% of his health.
I think it's 30%.
So you can do a hard hitting card, and then the next turn or whatever turn after that, you have got enough stacked up. You got to hit him like 3 solid times in a row to make sure you drain him before you gotta get past that. Like, it'll just completely down to 0, because even if you get past that section where he does the full heal, he gets like an attack boost, which will do so much damage. He's probably going to wipe you. you might be as well. So, what team do you like the best for Florida? You can pretty much get through this again with most of the standard teams. What teams are we talking about here? Would be the best ones for if floor 2 is just the one that you've got in mind for your target. What do you think are the best ones to go with? Like maybe some accessible options to Clap.
I mean, personally, I just love my Brunhild, Green Gopher, Margaret, and Matrona.
Yeah,
that's by far the best team to use for all the floors.
Best team for everything. I've seen a lot of people use T1 as well for their damage dealing, and I'd be interested to see how hard it is to get through floor 3 with a T1 team, but it's definitely doable to get through the floor 2. If you don't have a Brunhild, you can go with T1, Matrona, Margaret, and Gother, I guess would be a combination there. Before Matrona came out, a lot of us were using like a Brunhild, Gother, Derrier, Deanne, and Green Liz, but it can get tougher.
I wasn't able to clear the bird with that team.
Yeah.
I tried hard.
Floor 3 is really difficult with something like that, but floor 2 is a bit more possible because you've got Green Liz as the healer, you've got Derrier, Deanne as the taunter, and then you've got either the Margaret Sariel or the Gother Brunhild kind of combo to get your DPS up, whichever method that is. Phase 4 for floor 2. I can't even remember the gimmick for that one. Is that a hard one to get past, or once you're past,
just kill him?
Just kill him. It's simple as that, right? Just kill the guy. I think once you get past phase 3, as long as you have some decent damage cards in hand or some good cleanse cards from Margaret, if you're using Margaret, it helps a whole lot. The other thing I found about floor 2, and I'm not sure if you found this, like in floor 1, if you're using Margaret, you generally hold your buff cards for phase 4, but on floor 2, I find I use them a lot more liberally to mitigate damage and to cleanse a lot of the debuffs on you because he's got a lot of weak point type attacks along the way.
That's phase 1 mostly with the weak points. The others don't have weak point attacks. Yeah, definitely in phase 1, I just try to cleanse my debuffs all the time.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of the mistakes people were making. They're trying to save their Margaret buffs on floor 2, but you can definitely use them a lot more liberally. And
I never save them. I just try to have one up at all times.
Yeah, and it's very handy, and it comes in much more handy in floor 3, which we're going to talk about now. So floor 3, this is where you're getting a little bit into more difficult territory, and it can be a lot more difficult. Again, Matrona, Margaret, Green Gother, Brunhild is like the best foursome to go for. What you've done this with various levels of Brunhild. What alt level? A lot of people always ask that, like, what alt level do you need for Brunhild? My Brunhild's only a 2/6 or only a 1/6. Can I get through it? And what would your answer be to that, Clap? You've dealt with a lot of different.
I've done
Brunhilds.
It with 2/6 and with 6/6, so anything in between should also work.
Okay, so you find the healing is enough.
And I assume 1/6 will also work.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine those.
The healing isn't too important from the ult; it just helps.
Okay, so there you go. Like, and for Matrona, her alt level doesn't matter. The Green Gother's alt level doesn't matter. So, and then the Margaret's doesn't matter either. So if you just have the units,
helps for damage, but that's it.
Exactly. Obviously, every little bit helps, but it's not impossible. So if you have those 4 units, build them up, give them SA6, give them UR gear, and this is a possible thing to get through. Okay, so floor 3, it's not all about the buffs, but it's mostly about the buffs.
It's all about the buffs.
It's all about the buffs. So let's go through the different good and bad buffs to get along the way, because there's a whole bunch of them that just can kind of ruin your day. So on floor 1, phase 3, there's 3 buff. There's 1 buff that you get. You either get one where he increases the bird's crit damage by 30% for each alt orb removed from the hero's ultimate move gauge. So there's that, which I don't think that's nearly a bad one at all. If I get that one, I'm happy.
It's the best one by far. It doesn't matter. There's, I think, only 1 phase that removes alt orbs, and that's...
Yeah.
I don't recall.
So crit damage increase 1. If you get that one on floor 1, you're good to go. Keep going.
Yeah.
The next one.
Only heavy crits as well, so.
Yeah, exactly. The next one is called Keen Eyes. It decreases all of your crit resistance and crit defense by 30%. That one's a little bit harder, but I've managed to get through with that. Have you had any good, bad experience? What are your thoughts on Keen Eyes debuff on you?
I usually just reset it because it's floor 1 and it's quick to get back there.
True enough. Yeah, it's definitely the worst of the three. Is the next one's called Armor Destruction. When an enemy means you. When you take critical strike damage from the hero's attack, an effect is applied on that enemy, which decreases defense-related stats by 40% for 2 turns. I just keep going if I get that one too. I don't notice that one's nearly as bad as well.
Yeah, it's not bad. You can cleanse it, so it's just whatever.
There you go. Yeah, with the Margaret team, it makes it a lot easier. So the one that you don't want is the Keen Eyes one. The crit resistance, crit defense decreased by 30%.
Yeah, that's your passive OP.
Yeah. So floor 2, he gets 2 buffs, one on phase 2, one phase 4. So on floor 2, phase 2, this is the one where there's generally one that you want. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here, Clap. Okay, well, maybe you've got a different opinion, but the one I like to see the most is the one that fills the bird's ultimate gauge by 3 orbs at the start of the turn. The other ones, there's a buff cancel one, so you lose your buffs at the end of every turn, which makes keeping taunts and Margaret buffs a little bit more difficult. And then there's the max HP decrease, where he decreases your HP by the value of 200% of his defense, which can make tanking damage a little harder. Which ones do you think are dealable here, or ones you can deal with?
The old orb's definitely by far the best. And most people disagree with me, but I think the max HP decrease is also just fine.
Yeah, it's definitely not as good as the Alt Orb one, but I think...
Yeah, but definitely not too bad to deal with, even if you know what you're doing.
Even for floor 3, for an experienced veteran with good characters, you can get through.
I've done it twice with different accounts this week, so definitely.
You heard it here.
Doesn't matter as much as the next passes we're going to be talking about, the damage reduction one.
And the buff cancel, you with me? That's like an instant reset?
Just reset.
Not worth it.
You can clear floor 2 just fine, but you don't have to attempt floor 3 with that.
Yeah. So floor 2, phase 4, he gets another buff. One is damage taken increase. Decreases the damage taken from single target attacks by 40% and all target attacks by 30%. So straight up damage reduction. He's got another, well, these are all damage taken reduction ones. Next one is decrease the damage of the hero takes from enemies by 40%. And then the final one is applies an effect on the hero, which decreases damage taken by 15% for 2 turns when attacked. So, I mean, I like the one that's the stackable one where you attack him and he takes 15% less damage because you can strip it. There's a lot of strips on all these teams. The other two, yeah. I generally don't worry too much about which one I get here. I think they're all kind of okay to deal with. You're generally hitting the damage cap in most cases anyways. Am I wrong on this?
Personally, I just reset it if I don't get the stackable one because I just way too much effort for me to deal more damage. I'd rather just have an easier time just resetting.
Okay.
Especially now that I don't mind the HP down from the previous passives.
Yeah, I personally, I don't mind either of these 3. I wouldn't reset on my own, but I'm not sure if I had good RNG for floor 3 yet. I've been pretty easy to get through it for the past couple of weeks, but if I get any of these, I don't really worry too much about it. Floor 3, phase 2. And this is where it gets annoying because you're like, oh, I finally got to floor 3, phase 2, and then you see what the debuff is, or floor 3, phase 4, and you get a bad one, but then you got to start all over again if you get like one of the ones you don't like. But anyways, floor 3, phase 2, we've got configure target, which is attacking an enemy with a debuff results in a critical strike. What do you think about that one? Is this one that...
It hurts.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, well, it definitely hurt. I think I had this one last week, and even taunting up with Matrona, if you don't have damage mitigation up, or if they debuff and then have a couple of attacks in the same turn, you can lose her, even with like a gold buff up. So
yeah, you're always debuffed as well.
Yeah.
Like all phases just apply debuffs. So
yeah.
It hurt.
Yeah, I know like the card order can matter too on some of the phases. Sometimes he'll debuff first, then attack, and then sometimes the debuff comes at the end, which is nice, and then you can cleanse it, but still, it's definitely a difficult one to deal with. The next one is attack-related stats increase. Increases the hero's attack-related stats by 8% for 3 turns every time an enemy ultimate move gauge reaches 5 orbs or more. I'm not even sure if I've ever had this one. This one doesn't seem too bad at all.
It's the one you want to see. It's the best.
Maybe I have had it and I didn't really realize because
It
you
just
don't really
looks the
notice too
same as
much.
the next one, so you probably just don't
Yeah,
realize it.
that's probably it. The icons are exactly the same, which is dumb. I don't know why they didn't bother making an extra icon. The final one, though, is increases the hero's attack by 8% for each stance or buff on the enemy while using a skill. I think, is there more of that? I'm trying to see. I think my little graphic gets cut off here.
Yeah.
Oh, no, applies before
The
skill
reflect
activation.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reflect.
And then there's also a damage reflect one, which at first I thought was going to be bad, but you can. So what it does is applies an effect which reflects 25% of the hero's damage taken at the start of the battle. So at the beginning of every phase, he puts up a buff on himself, which is a reflect buff, which you can strip. Which again, you've got a ton of strips, and even if you can't strip it, you can just power through it. Like most of your heroes,
25% of your damage, and it's fine. You don't take too much damage outside of phase 1 usually.
Yeah, and you lifesteal, and it's usually not
you
your.
don't lifesteal anything, Daz.
What? Yeah, you do. A little bit? No? Okay.
No, he lowers it by like 40%.
See, that's why I've got you here to keep me honest. So, yeah, the damage is very minimal, but also like if you're getting the proper luck, you've got a taunt up most of the time, so he's not attacking your damage dealers. So they should generally not be in the range where you're kind of worried about them dying because of the reflect damage. So on this floor then, so it's the debuff resulting in critical strike is probably the worst one. The other three are dealable in terms of resetting. So that's just the one that you don't want to get. But again,
8% per buff, the 8% attack per buff, you just need to be careful and probably not use gold buffs as much because they're just extra buffs for him to attack into.
But like I said, even with the one that I said we should reset on, like I got through it with that, and I think a lot of these you can get through. It just makes it more difficult. And if you're,
it's definitely doable with all of them. Just some are more difficult.
Floor 3, fourth phase, which is again the biggest letdown if you get a bad one here. But they are all dealable with that you can get through them, but some of them are more difficult than others.
I don't think any of them are really bad. They're just more annoying than others.
So he's got one that's a revive. So once he dies, he gets 50% of his max HP back. He only gets that once, obviously, or else it would be impossible. He also has one called Overcome Crisis. Removes the hero's debuffs, fully heals his HP, and increases all stats by 15% when the hero survives with 25% HP or less. So essentially, the Rugal passive. I've never had that one, but I know a lot of people find it very annoying. One thing to note is that on this phase, you can do 35% damage with an attack. So the cap is a little bit higher than on other phases. I believe phase 3, floor 3 is the same as well. And then finally, weapon destruction. If the hero inflicts damage on an enemy using a single target attack, applies an effect on the target which decreases attack-related stats by 30% for 2 turns. And this is another one that I don't really worry about too much, especially because of the cleansing.
It doesn't matter what he does there.
Yeah. The revive and I think the Rugal one's probably the most annoying, but again, they're both ones you can deal with.
For me, the revive is the most annoying one.
Yeah.
Because hitting damage cap isn't hard usually with the right setup.
Okay, so what things we need to think of on floor 3 other than the buffs that you need to worry about? Phase 1 to floor 3 is one where I feel like it's probably the hardest, actually, or one of the hardest on floor 3 because of the damage he deals and the damage reduction. Because I think your bronze cars do less damage on that floor. So
yeah, it does, and the blockade that he puts up, so you can't use like rank 2 or rank 3 skills.
Yeah. So you want to make sure if you've got Margaret, you keep her cleanses at bronze level so you can cleanse and then use stuff after that. And he's got ruin and I think rupture damage as well.
Ruin and rupture card. He just does both.
It's just hell all around. But once you get through it, you just hopefully you can just kind of power through it, keep those taunts up, cleanse when you can, slowly chip away at them. You get to phase 2. Is there anything gimmicky there? What's the phase 2?
He deletes your cards. The hero he attacks gets her cards deleted.
Which isn't too bad, because if you have Matrona up, it only deletes Matrona's cards. So
and her cards are usually just bad anyways.
Exactly. So as long as you have a taunt up to start, you're going to have a taunt for 3 turns, and you should be able to get through it in 3 turns. Floor phase 3 and phase 4, the bird has the Merlin passive where the more health he has, the harder he hits. So I found that if you can do a lot of damage to him right at the beginning, he actually hits pretty weakly on both those floors, phases. But phase 3 is another one of those annoying ones because if you can't get it done within 3 turns, it's pretty much going to make the rest of the floor impossible because he seals with a gray debuff different types of cards after each turn. The first 2 turns aren't so bad because I think it's debuff cards and stance cards or something. And
stances, debuffs, buffs, attack cards, and then ultimates.
When he gets into the buffs and the attack cards, that's where you don't want to get through that. I mean, you can, if he seals your buff cards, if you've got a Margaret buff up going into that turn, you might be okay, but it's going to make the phase.
If you have it up, it's still fine. Otherwise, you really need your gold brain healer cards or your damage dealer cards to do anything.
So you want to make sure you get through that phase as fast as humanly possible. A lot of ways, I feel like phase 2 of floor 3 is one where you can kind of stall out a little bit to try and build up the cards so you can power through phase 3. And
definitely
then
just the preparation phase.
And phase 4, he does a lot of damage, but he's got the Merlin passive, so if you can get him down early, I think it helps a lot too. Usually I just try and stack as many of those cards that I can have and like try and line up some ults. I know it can be tough getting through phase 3 and then having to deal with phase 4 right afterwards because you already tried to like get through phase 3 really quick. But just like getting him down as quickly as possible. I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer, but it's really what you just need to do.
Yeah, otherwise the Merlin passive and the flood cards just lots of damage.
Exactly. So that's the bird. Hopefully it'll just be easier in a few weeks with constellations and everything, and it'll make it much...
Next week. It's only a few days away.
I guess so. It'll make it easier for everybody. Next reset, I guess I should say. Next maintenance.
Yeah.
All right, and if you would like someone to do it for you, Claptrap will offer his services a nominal fee, a monthly swipe, I believe, to help you get through floor 3.
Yep. That's pretty much it.
All right, let's move along. Let's talk about top 100 PvP. It's something that I always avoided top 100 PvP, not only because I felt like I wasn't a PvP sweat, but during the seasons where they have the big rewards, like the characters, or I believe last season they had a lot of perp stones up for grabs, it gets pretty competitive. You get a lot of the whales going in and hitting really hard, and if you don't have a almost totally maxed out team, you will have a really difficult time competing. In a lot of cases, knowing what team is a good team in the certain season is difficult. And I think this season, actually in particular, there's a lot more variance in the top 100 than you usually see. I did top 100 last major season, and it was pretty much almost all Merlin, Amelia, Goddess Liz teams, just the unknown teams, and like you could do well if you had that team stacked up. But this season, I'm seeing a little bit of everything. So what I know you actually made top 100, Clap, and I didn't. So maybe I should be asking you what did you run last week in top 100 PvP?
I used Bond with Excalibur, Arthur, Keo, and then Twigo in the back.
And Keo is good this week or I guess this season because of the
ignites.
Rule. There's a PvP rule, that gives extra damage.
Exactly, but
we keep talking at the same time.
30% extra damage on debuffs.
I'll just let you talk. Yeah, 30% damage when there's a debuff on the enemy, but then also the first week, I believe you got a heal for every, like if you attack people with debuffs. This week, if you get attacked, you get an attack boost, right? It's hidden, it doesn't show up.
Yeah.
So there's that rule that you need to contend with. And then next week, I don't even know what the rule is, but I'm scared to ask. I think I might have given up since I didn't make top 100 last week. But hey, so you ran the Bond team, and you got all relics.
Relics on all of them except Keo.
Yeah, which I mean, next week you can run that team with Keo's relic too because he's getting one. So what's the strategy there? Just alt rush and slam?
Yeah, just rush your ult.
But the thing is, like, one thing I got to ask you is, because I tried running Bond for a little bit, and running into teams with dissolves just or freezes or, you know, alt locks just felt horrible. Do you is that just use single mind focus, get my alt and alt, or do you start using bond swipes after a certain point and trying to damage them down the normal way?
Yeah, against the unknown teams with the Festival Gopher and Amelias, and then whatever Merlin they use, Festival Merlin or the Blue Summer Merlin, you just try to attack them down because you're almost never going to get your ult off before you die.
Maybe that's what I was doing wrong. I went from I even wrote it down here, all the different teams I used. So I went through a sequence. I was like, oh, you know, this is going to be great for like the Beach Merlin, Amelia, New Gother team. So I tried that out.
It's a really good team.
It didn't work for me.
It's build up.
Yeah, one of my problems was New Gother is a lot stronger when he's 6/6. If he's low alt level, like his ult does nothing. 6/6, like you get rid of alts and all of the cards, which is absolutely phenomenal. But having low alt level Gother is tough. And what I found with Gother and Beach Merlin and Amelia, a lot of it relied on me getting a lot of Merlin cards to be able to seal out the other team. And if you didn't get those, just felt bad. And there's not like a ton of damage outside of alts and I guess Beach Merlin's single target attack. So it felt just stally. Eventually I get a turn where I didn't have the cards I needed and then I'd lose. But who knows? Maybe it's just me and not knowing how to pilot a team. I tried Bond after that because I gave up after losing to lots of Bonds. So I tried Bond and he did all right. But I was like, you know, I'm just going to go back to my good old-fashioned unknown team. I tried that again. Lolly, Merlin, Melee, Goslez, and Rem. It did okay. But then I still got sick and tired of facing all these bonds with relics, and you kill Keo, and then up pops Twigo with a relic, and you can't get past him. Bond ults you in the face. It just felt so bad. And even if Bond's not ulting you in the face, he's doing what you said. He just swipes you a couple times, and you're all dead. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use a Bond counter team. And I saw a lot of these teams out there. One was Cusack, Chandler, Assault Meliodas with Festival Zeldris in the back, which worked okay, but then I eventually switched it to something that one of our guildmates, Marduro, was using, Cusack, Festival Zeldris, Keo with Bon in the back. And with that team, you can actually kill Bon on turn one, and usually you're out CCing Bon, so it felt nice. Anytime I saw a Bon, it was generally a free win. But yeah, and then I think I got 70 out of 100 wins, 70% win rate, and still didn't qualify, so it felt kind of bad, but I don't know, what was your win rate? You must have been up there, eh?
77%.
Yeah.
And at 57th in the season.
It's crazy like how 5 to 7 matches can make the difference between not qualifying and qualifying. Like there's so many people trying for it that it's just such a tight pack to make it into the top 100. And just to make things worse, there's been a very well publicized issue with cheating. Well, I guess arguably quote unquote cheating, because some people say it's cheating, some people say it's not, which has been it's cheating. Okay, we'll just call it what it is.
Almost everyone agrees with it, except the people that actually do it.
So we're not going to explain how to do it because I don't want to like get more people tempted to use it. But essentially there's a method that you can use to ensure that you only face bots. You may have come across it before where you go into a match, the other person disconnects right away. They don't actually get a loss for that. They don't even consume a PvP ticket, one of their 100 PvP tickets or turns for qualify for their final results. So they can just do that trick over and over again and only fight bots. You can use teams that are good against bots, like a Bond team or a team with like Blue Fraudrin even, right? And just wreck every bot you see and get essentially 100% win rate. Maybe you'll lose once or twice, but the real challenge in top 100 is facing real players because they're generally more difficult and there's such a variety of teams out there. It's almost impossible to get a really high win rate. Clap was amazing and he did it legit and he did a good job, which is great because I know there's at least 30 to 40 people, maybe even more, that are using this trick. And if you clutter out that many people at a top 100, it really pushes out a lot of people, gets a lot of people salty and not very happy about it. And I know Maruli did a video about it today, actually. And if you go into the forums, you'll hear a lot about any community Discord servers. People are up in arms and like people are getting reported left, right, and center for it. People are saying this is ruining top 100. In a lot of ways it is too. it's taking away from what a lot of people, their hard work and effort and trying to do it legitimately. And when other people are taking shortcuts to get, that green or that Gill Thunder reward, which isn't even a good one. That's kind of the irony of it all too. It's all this effort just for it. And if anyone is using this exploit, I definitely would suggest not, just because it is probably on Netmarble's radar now, because there has been such a fuss about it. I can't imagine they'll ban people. I really hope they don't, because a lot of people I know that have been using this exploit are using it out of frustration because everyone else is using it. I don't think that's an excuse to. It feels like when you're in the Olympics, like you don't just take, well, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do. They take performance enhancing drugs because they quote unquote say everyone else does. So they have to in order to compete. And I feel like that's not an excuse, right? And I think everyone would argue that is straight up cheating, right? And that's something you would get banned for if you got caught. But in this case, I hope Netmarble doesn't ban people for it. I hope they just fix the problem, because a lot of people are doing it out of frustration and anger, frankly, just because of what's been going on in PvP right now. So that's my little rant about the cheating in top 100 PvP, and I hope it subsides. Have you run into a lot of that? I think I hit a few people using it. I know a lot of people that have admittedly just say they use it flat out, and like that, there's quite a few of them.
I've not found anyone doing it to me, sadly. I'd like my free wins. So.
Yeah. Clap, you were smart, though. You found not a loophole, but just a strategic way of going about it. A lot of people rush their top 100 matches right at the beginning of the week or even midweek, whereas you left yours to the end, so you fought a lot of bots, but in a natural way, because there wasn't as many people playing.
No need to cheat. Yeah. Just queue at the right times.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a smart way to do it. Now, there's one point where I was trying to be like, hey, 2:00 in the morning my time, I was like, Europe's asleep. Like, I think this might be the best chance to get like the least amount of player base playing, and I tried queuing up then, but man, I played too many matches early in the week too, and not making it as an excuse, but I am making it as an excuse, I guess. But I didn't see very many bots. But I did run into a lot of several people using the exploit, which is unfortunate. Cool. Okay, let's move along to the segment that Sandy usually does, and we'll still do it, but I guess I'll take the reins on it this week. Is the featured comment. Not Maggie from YouTube left a comment just a day ago or two saying, does anyone know what happened to them? I enjoyed listening to their podcast. Well, Maggie, I'm sorry. Or not Maggie, I guess. I called you Maggie, but you're not Maggie, obviously, because that's your name. Like I said off the top, scheduling conflicts and just life, I guess, got in the way, but we're going to be trying to make another push for it to be doing this again on a weekly basis. But thanks for wondering where we were and missing us, which is, it's nice to be missed. But yeah, I think this is probably, we're going to round out the show, Clap, though. Thanks a lot for filling in some big shoes, and it's not only Sandy's shoes, but Novage's shoes as well. You're filling in for a couple pairs of shoes.
I think my shoes are bigger.
Well, they're definitely pretty big, and we're glad we could have you on. But thanks everybody for joining us today at the Boar Hat Tavern, the 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross podcast. We're trying to figure out if we're still going to be streaming this on Twitch or maybe even YouTube on a regular basis. This week we're just recording it. We're not streaming live. We'll see we'll have to make a decision about that going forward. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us anytime at podcast@boarhattavern.com. Myself, Claptrap, Sandyy and Novage, we're all members of the Global Guild Denied. It's part of the Scoundrels Alliance. If you'd like to join our ranks, the best way is probably actually to email me, which sounds kind of strange. Most people just contact you in Discord, but we had some trolls sneaking into our Discord server recently, so we had to kind of close the doors. It's a little bit harder to get in. I can't just publicly post the link anymore for that. So just email us at podcast@boarhattavern.com. We'll get in touch with you there. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you happen to find your podcasts online. You can also find our shows on the website, boarhattavern.com, which I'm not even going to bother saying we're going to update anymore because I really don't think it's ever going to happen at this point. It is what it is. It's a crappy website, but hey, we're not here for the website, are we? Also like to thank Madeline Marois for crafting our killer logo, Streetwise Rhapsody from YouTube for composing the awesome cover of the Grand Cross theme song that we use for our intro, and Andre Bobe from ArtStation for letting us use his outstanding 3D renders of the Boar Hat Tavern for our pre-live and post-video splash screens. You can find all their work on the websites in the description. Thanks everybody for listening. Again, thanks Clap for being here. Have a great week.
Have a nice week.